Well, hello, good morning. It is Thursday the 9th of January, 8:30 in the morning. Today is the daily cyber briefing brought to you by Rich Benfield instead of Stephen Ridgway. So hopefully normal service will be resumed next week. I'm sure you're bored of me already. Okay, so headlines. What have we got? Ivanti flaw, CVE 2025-0282, actively exploited, impacts Connect Secure and Policy Secure. Looking at LinkedIn, that's quite a big one. Neglected domains used in malspam to evade SPF and DMARC security protections. SonicWall urges admins to patch exploitable SSLVPN bug immediately. Russian ISP confirms Ukrainian hackers destroyed its network. And finally, the Japanese police claim China ran a 5-year cyber attack campaign targeting local organizations. So let's talk about the Ivanti flaw. This article comes from the hackernews.com. Again, links will, as per usual, links will be posted in the socials underneath the video, so you can check these out yourself. So, Ivanti is warning that a critical security flaw impacting Ivanti Connect Secure, Policy Secure, and ZTA gateways has come under active exploitation in the wild, beginning mid-December 2020 flaw. The security vulnerability in question is CVE 2025-0282, CVSS score of 9.0. It's a stack-based buffer overflow that affects Ivanti Connect Secure before version 22.7R2.5, Ivanti Policy Secure before version 22.7R1.2, and Ivanti Neurons for ZTA gateways before version 22.7R2.3. Okay. So, successful exploitation of CVE 2025-0282 could lead to unauthenticated remote code execution, Ivanti said in an advisory. And there's links in this article to the advisory if you need to find them. Threat actor activity was identified by the Integrity Checker tool on the same day it occurred, enabling Ivanti to respond promptly and rapidly develop a fix. Also patched by the company is another high-severity flaw. That's CVE 2025-0283 with a CVSS score of 7 that allows a locally authenticated attacker to escalate their privileges. The vulnerabilities addressed in version 22.7R2.5 impact the following versions. Okay, so CVE 2025-0282, Ivanti Connect Secure, 22.7R2 through to 22.7R2.4. Ivanti Policy Secure, 22.7R1 through 22.7R1.2, and Ivanti Neurons for ZTA gateways for 22.7R2 through 22.7R2.3. Okay, and the other CVE, which is 2025-0283, impacts Ivanti Connect Secure 22.7R2.4 and prior, 9.1 R18.9 and prior, and Ivanti Policy Secure 22.7.7 R1.2 and prior, and Ivanti Neurons for ZTA gateways 22.7R2.3 and prior. Ivanti has acknowledged that it's aware of a limited number of customers whose appliances have been exploited due to CVE 2025-0282. There is currently no evidence that CVE 2025-0283 is being weaponized. Google owned Mandiant, which detailed its investigation into attacks exploiting 0282, said it observed the deployment of the Spawn of malware across several compromised devices from multiple organizations. The use of Spawn has been attributed to a China Nexus threat actor dubbed UNC 5337, which is assessed to be a part of UNC 5221 with medium confidence. The attacks have also culminated in the installation of previously undocumented malware families dubbed Dryhook and FaceJam. Neither of the strains have been linked to a known threat actor or group. The exploitation of CVE 2025-0282, per the cybersecurity company, entails performing a series of steps to disable SE Linux, prevent syslog forwarding, remount the driver's read-write, execute scripts to drop web shells, use SED to remove specific log entries from the debug and application logs, re-enable SE Linux, and remount the drive. One of the payloads executed using the shell script is another shell script that in turn runs an ELF binary responsible for launching FaceJam, a shell script dropper that's designed to make malicious modifications to the Ivanti Connect Secure appliance components. Okay, so let's talk about FaceJam. The primary functions of FaceJam are to insert a web shell into the getComponent.cgi and restauth.cgi files Block system upgrades will modify dsupgrade.pm file and overwrite the remote debug executable so that it can be used to execute arbitrary commands when a specific parameter is passed, Mandiant researchers said. The web shell is capable of decoding shell commands and exfiltrating the results of the command execution back to the attacker, uploading arbitrary files on the infected device, and reading and transmitting file contents. Okay, so there's evidence to suggest that the attack is the work of a sophisticated threat actor, owing to the methodical removal of log entries, kernel messages, crash traces, certificate handling errors, and command history. Okay, so there's a whole bunch more in this document, but essentially what you want to do is get yourself patched. Follow the link to this document in our socials, read the advisory, and basically patch your platforms, patch your systems. Okay. So next up, neglected domains used in malspam to evade SPF and DMARC security protections. So cybersecurity researchers have found that bad actors are continuing to have success by spoofing sender email addresses as part of various malspam campaigns. Yep, nothing new there. Faking the sender address of an email is widely seen as an attempt to make the digital missive more legitimate and get past security mechanisms that could otherwise flag it as malicious. So while there are safeguards such as domain keys, identified mail, that's DKIM, domain-based message authentication, reporting and conformance, DMARC, and sender policy framework, SPF, that can be used to prevent spammers from spoofing well-known domains, such measures have increasingly led them to leverage old, neglected domains in their operations. In doing so, the email messages are likely to bypass security checks that rely on a domain age as a means to identify spam. DNS threat intelligence firm Infoblox, in a new analysis shared with the Hacker News, discovered that threat actors, including Muddling Meerkat and others, have abused some of its own old, disused top-level domains that haven't been used to host content for nearly 20 years. Okay, so this is interesting because you wouldn't think domain reputation will work that way based on age of domain, but clearly it does, certainly for some spam filtering services at least. So I haven't got any mitigations in here. We're going to have to wait for your spam filters to basically catch up and sort this out. However, if you do follow the link to this article, it does go into some more technical detail about how it's done and how the impersonation happens and all sorts of technical snippets of information. It is quite interesting. So if that sort of thing does interest you, then go ahead and follow the link, read the full article, and you'll get better informed. So next up, SonicWall urges admins to patch exploitable SSLVPN bug immediately. So this one's on Bleeping Computer. And SonicWall is emailing customers urging them to upgrade their firewall's SonicOS firmware to patch an authentication bypass vulnerability in SSLVPN and SSH management that is susceptible to actual exploitation. In an email sent to SonicWall customers and shared on Reddit, the firewall vendor says the patches are available as of yesterday, and all impacted customers should install them immediately to prevent exploitation. So they've identified a high severity, that's got a CVE score of 8.2, firewall vulnerability that is susceptible to actual exploitation for customers with SSL VPN or SSH management enabled, and that should be mitigated immediately by upgrading to the latest firmware, which will be web posted tomorrow, January 7th, 2025, warns a SonicWall email sent to customers. The same firmware upgrade contains mitigations for additional less critical vulnerabilities. A SonicWall security bulletin tracks this flaw as CVE 2024-53704 with CVSS score of 8.2, stating it impacts multiple Generation 6 and Generation 7 firewalls, running 6.5.4.15-117N and older, and 7.0.1-5161 and older versions. Impacted users are recommended to upgrade to the following versions to address the security risk. So for Gen 6 6.5 hardware firewalls, get yourself onto SonicOS 6.5.5.1-6N or newer. For Gen 6 and 6.5 NSV firewalls, use SonicOS 6.5.4 V21S RC2457 or newer. Well, that was a mouthful. Thanks, Sonic. Gen 7 firewalls, SonicOS 7.0.1-5165 or newer. And 7.1.3-7015 and higher. And for the TZ80, SonicOS 800-8037 or newer. Okay. So that was a mouthful to read. I do suggest you read this article or pick it up from SonicWall themselves. But basically, update your SonicWalls, okay? The same bulletin lists 3 more medium to high severity issues as well, which are CVE 2024-40762, which is a cryptographically weak pseudo-random number generator is used in the SSLVPN authentication token generator, potentially allowing an attacker to predict tokens and bypass authentication in certain cases. Blimey. Okay, next, also there is CVE 2024-53705, which is a server-side request forgery vulnerability in the SonicOS SSH management interface, which would enable a remote attacker to establish TCP connections to arbitrary IP addresses and ports, provided the attacker is logged into the firewall. And also CVE 2024-53706, a flaw in the Gen 7 SonicOS Cloud NSV, specific to AWS and Azure editions, that allows a low-privileged authenticated attacker to escalate privileges to root, potentially enabling code execution. SonicWall also lists some mitigations for the SSLVPN vulnerabilities, including limiting access to trusted sources and restricting access from the internet entirely if not needed. To mitigate SSH flaws, administrators are recommended to restrict firewall SSH management access and consider disabling access from the internet. Okay, fine. Yep, update your SonicWalls. Is what it is. You can patch like 4 or 5 CVEs all in one hit there. Russian ISP confirms Ukrainian hackers destroyed its network. This is on Bleeping Computer. Again, of course, links will be posted in the socials. Ukrainian hacktivists, part of the Ukrainian Cyber Alliance group, announced on Tuesday they had breached Russian internet service provider Nodex's network and wiped hacked systems after stealing sensitive documents. The Russian internet provider in Nodex in St. Petersburg was completely looted and wiped. Data exfiltrated, while the empty equipment without backups was left to them, the Ukrainian hacktivist announced yesterday on Telegram. The hackers also shared screenshots of the Russian ISP's VMware, Veeam Backup, and Hewlett-Packard Enterprise virtual infrastructure they hacked during the breach. On Tuesday, Nodex confirmed the Ukrainian Cyber Alliance's claims by telling customers in a vContact post that its network is destroyed following what it described as a planned attack likely originating from Ukraine. They said, "Dear subscribers, last night an attack was carried out on our infra, presumably from Ukraine. The network has been destroyed. We are restoring it from backups," Nodex said. "There are no timelines or forecasts at the moment. Our priority is to first restore telephony and the call center." Internet monitoring organization NetBlocks also saw fixed line and mobile services connectivity collapsing on Nodex's network internet operator yesterday at midnight, following the ISP's confirmation it was dealing with a cyber attack. The record first reported the attack, saying Nodex's website was still down and the Russian internet provider was still working on restoring systems. However, the company could not provide a timeline for when systems would return. Since then, Nodex has issued more updates on the restoration process, telling subscribers that the network core has been restored and that its engineers are still working on resetting switches. 3 hours later, the Russian ISP said that a DHCP server had been bought online and that internet connectivity should now be available for many customers. Many people should be able to use the internet. Please reboot your servers, Nodex said in another update on Russian vContact social media network. The Ukrainian Cyber Alliance has been active since 2016 when multiple hackers and hacker groups, e.g. Falcon's Flame, Trinity, RUH8 and Cyberhunter, banded together to defend their country from Russian aggression in cyberspace and registered as a non-governmental organization. Since then, UCA cyber activists have claimed many breaches impacting various Russian organizations, including the Russian Ministry of Defense, Commonwealth of Independent States Institute, financed by the Russian state company Gazprom, the Donetsk People's Republic's Ministry of Coal and Energy, Vladimir Putin's political advisor Vladislav Surkov, and multiple Russian military officers and media outlets, among others. In October 2023, the Ukrainian hacktivists also hacked the Trigona ransomware gang's servers and wiped them clean after exfiltrating all data, including source code, database records, and cryptocurrency hot wallets. And the final article of today is Japanese police claim China ran a 5-year cyber attack campaign targeting local organizations. Japan's National Police Agency and Center of Incident Readiness and Strategy for Cybersecurity have confirmed third-party reports of attacks on local orgs by publishing details of a years-long series of attacks attributed to a China-backed source. The agencies have named the actor MirrorFace, aka Earth Cacher, and outlined a campaign they allege started in 2019 and saw at least 3 waves of attack that continued in 2024. The agency's report follows similar allegations raised last year by InfoSec vendors Trend Micro and Broadcom. The alleged attackers have also been linked to the APT-10 gang. Don't all rush to the MITRE Attack Navigator to look them up. The first wave of attacks ran from December 2019 to July 2023 and saw phishing emails sent to targets at think tanks, government agencies, politicians, and media organizations. The messages sometimes included malware in attached files, while others initiated conversations in which the sender offered to send info pursuant to the topic at hand, and instead sent malware named LoadInfo, Lilimrat, and Noopdoor, all unknown malware strains. A second campaign ran from February 2023 into mid-2024 and saw attackers exploit known weaknesses in TLS 1.0, use client certificates that they somehow obtained to authenticate, and employ use SQL injection attacks. The attackers also apparently installed the Neo-Re-George tunneling tool and open source web shells on VPNs. After the attacks, Japanese authorities observed abuse of Active Directory servers and unauthorized access to Microsoft 365. Machine translation of National Police docs suggests unauthorized access to virtualization servers and acquisition of virtual machine images was another outcome. So was deployment of Cobalt Strike Beacon, LoadInfo, and Noopdoor malware. Japan's semiconductor, manufacturing, information and communications, academic and aerospace sectors were the target of the second attack wave. So, interesting things happening there. The third campaign kicked off in June 2024 and again involved phishing, this time to send documents that enabled macros to run in Microsoft Office apps. Again, the Noopdoor malware was dropped when possible, along with another strain called Anel that's thought to be part of APT-10's armory. Academia, think tanks, politicians, and the media were among the targets. Scarily, Japan's investigators observed this campaign sometimes saw malware running in the Windows sandbox. The not quite a VM Microsoft offers to run code in isolation within some versions of Windows 10 and 11. A Japanese language document PDF explains that the malware took advantage of the fact that the Windows sandbox can be set to allow it to interact with a host machine, and that instructions from a command and control server drove sandbox code to do so. Anything in the Windows sandbox should disappear after system reboots, which hides attackers' traces nicely and means they can't establish a persistent presence. These miscreants may not have needed that ongoing access, as it appears they have used the access afforded by their previous attacks and tools to exploit known vulnerabilities in Fortinet and Citrix products, enabling further forays. Japanese authorities have urged local businesses to learn from the documentation it has provided about the attacks and harden their defenses. That may be too little too late, as in 2018, before this wave of attacks commenced, Google warned that APT-10 had launched a new phishing campaign at Japanese targets and conducted similar campaigns since 2009. So that article's on the register if that's of interest to you. Okay, so that draws us to a close for today. Thank you so much for listening. I'll be back tomorrow morning for Friday's daily cyber briefing. So I'll see you in the morning at 8:30. Thanks a lot.